Hello, everybody. This is Dean Val, Dean Kevin, and Jeremy, soon to be Dean in the near future. But we're going to be talking about the new education and how kids could be raised to, have a real survival and a real awareness in this world that's very challenging, and then get beyond the world of creation and even into the real universes. So this show is to share with everybody. I have an interest in this fellow named Luther Standing Bear. He's a Lakota Sioux. He lived 1886 to, I think it was, yes, in the early 1900s. He was even an actor. He was even in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, and he was in the first Indian school in Pennsylvania when they started the reservations, the U.S. government, and they sent the Indians to school to mind frame them in a certain way. Carlisle School, that's what it was called, in Pennsylvania. They cut the kids their hair, and they put them in suits and uniforms, and they really indoctrinated them into the Western culture. And the kids couldn't speak their own language anymore, so they tried to destroy the culture. So this Luther Standing Bear, he was part of the school, so he had a taste of both cultures, but he wrote 4 books, and this is one of them. It's called My Indian Boyhood. And it's a very good description of how the Indian children grew up in that culture. So I thought I'd share some of this with you. Again, to not necessarily advocate it, but just to give you another viewpoint of how things can be, especially working with an all-natural environment. A teepee was my first home. In it, I was born, and my earliest recollection is playing around the fire and being watched over by my Indian mother. As a baby, I swung in an Indian cradle from poles in a teepee. I was the first son of a chief, and I was expected to grow up brave and fearless like my father. I was named Plenty Kill. My parents called me Ota Kati, for that was the way to say Plenty Kill in Sioux. As I grew up, my father began to teach me all the things that a little Indian boy should know. When I was old enough to be put on a pony, he taught me how to ride. He tied my pony to his with a rope, and I rode this way until I had learned to handle the pony myself. When I had learned to ride, I went on short hunts with him, and he taught me how to butcher small game. Finally, the eventful day came when I went on a buffalo hunt. That was an important day in my life. When I went home to the teepee and told my mother I had killed a buffalo, she was proud of me, and that made me happy. I learned about the habits of wild animals and how to trap them. I learned to shoot birds with a bow and arrow and to roast them on the fire. I soon came to know much about the weather and how to prepare for the coming winter by tanning skins for warm clothing. By knowing all these things, we had no fear of nature, but on the contrary, loved nature. She seemed beautiful to us with all the things she had provided for our comfort. At this time, we lived close to nature and knew nothing but nature. We observed everything of the outdoors, and in this way learned many things that were good and helpful for us to know. The Indian knows that nature is wise, and that by keeping out our eyes open, we learn her wise ways. For instance, we were taught to go to bed when the rest of the world went to rest. When darkness came and all the birds and animals went to sleep, we were sleeping too. That helped us become strong and healthy, so that we grew up to be strong, stout-hearted men. We were taught to rise early in the morning before sunrise. Our parents knew it was good for us to rise early, so they began to train us when we were quite young. You see, animals are all awake and stirring about before sunrise. So you can understand that it would be a poor hunter who would start for a hunt after the game was gone. Then in early days, when our tribe had enemies, it was necessary for us to rise early if we were going on a war party and not let the enemy get the advantage of us. The white people have a saying, the early bird catches the worm, which means much the same that I'm telling you. Of course, we tried to obey our parents when they called to us in the morning, and we were supposed to get up at the first call. Not all Sioux boys, however, were obedient. Some were lazy and would not heed their father or mother's voice. When it became necessary for a parent to punish a disobedient child, it was not done in a harsh manner. The worst thing a Sioux parent did was to pour cold water on a child's face. This would awaken sleepy boys and girls, and they would be ashamed of themselves. We were never whipped nor severely punished, for Sioux parents did not believe in whipping or beating children. Through this method of upbringing, a bond or tie was formed between Sioux parents and children, so that as we grew up in years, our respect for our parents grew also. Finally, as we grew to manhood, we looked forward to the day when we should repay our kind parents by taking care of them in their old age. We looked upon this as a pleasure and not a duty. Now, what did we do after we were up in the morning and our day had begun? In those days, we did not have nice bathtubs and bathrooms, nor even a wash basin. But our teepees were always close to a pure running stream. So the first thing we did was to run to the stream, take a mouthful of water, rinse our mouths well, wash our faces, then take a big drink. This last we did, for we knew it was good for our health, and is something everyone should do getting up in the morning. The use of pure running water and never breathing anything but pure air kept us strong and clean in body. It is a well-known fact that the Sioux people were a healthy people and were seldom sick. Most of us died from old age or from wounds received in battle. Sometimes, too, a man was injured during a hunt. When we were through at the brook and with our bathing, we felt fine and had a good appetite for breakfast. Once in a while, one of the boys would jump into the stream and enjoy a bath. Then more likely the rest of us would follow, and we would all have a fine bath before going back to the teepee to begin the day by eating breakfast. This morning meal, as did all other meals, consisted of meat cooked in one of the various ways in which Indian women prepared meat for food. We did not drink strong coffee and would not have cared for it anyway. Neither did we have bread in those days. Sometimes our meat was boiled, and if so, we had soup, which we enjoyed. Then sometimes our meat was roasted over an open fire. This means of cooking gave us meat a very fine flavor, and if a few ashes got on the meat, we did not mind, but rather liked it. For the Indian knows that a little ash eaten with his meat is a good tonic for the stomach. It acts as a cleanser and helps the digestion. Though we did not have bread in those days, we did not miss it, for we had other things to take its place. There were many plants that were good served with our meat, either raw or cooked. These plants and herbs, aside from being good for food, were good to use as medicine in case of sickness, and then again in the treatment of wounds. About these, I will tell you later. When the summertime came, we boys had the fun of gathering and eating wild fruits. There were blackberries, which we liked very much, and the red currants, which were so pretty when ripe. The wild plum, which had such a fine flavor, and the cherry, black and luscious when ripe. Then from the wild rose bush, we gathered a fruit of which we were very fond. In the autumn, after the petals in the rose had blown away, there formed just where the bloom had been a little fruit that looked something like a tiny crabapple. They were a pretty red, sometimes streaked with yellow, and we thought they were delicious. Our mothers sometimes gathered these and pounded them and made them into balls, as popcorn balls are now made. Oh, what fun to gather and eat these delicious fruits. What fun to play along the bank of the stream and look for currants and blackberries. There were no signs here and there, keep out or boys stay out. All was free to us, and all we all had to do was go get it. I also remember a small fruit or berry which grew in sandy soil on low bushes. When ripe, they were black like cherries, so the white people called them sand cherries. Our name for them was yuppie. There is something peculiar about these cherries. When we gathered them, we always stood against the wind and never with the wind blowing from us across the plant. If we did, the fruit lost some of its flavor, but if we gathered in the right way, they were sweeter than if they gathered in the wrong way. This, I believe, is one of the many secrets which the Indian possesses, for I have never met a white person who knew this. But nature has given more of her secret knowledge to us than to the white man. Maybe this is so because we lived so close to her and appreciated her so much. Then another reason is because the Indian senses of sight, hearing, and smell are keener than the senses of the white man. Life for the Indian is one of harmony with nature and the things which surround him. The Indian tried to fit in with nature and to understand, not to conquer and rule. We were rewarded by learning much that the white man will never know. Life was a glorious thing, for great contentment comes with the feeling of friendship and kinship with the living things about you. The white man seems to look upon all animal life as enemies, while we looked upon them as friends and benefactors. They were one with the great mystery, and so were we. We could feel the peace and power of the great mystery in the soft grass under our feet and in the blue sky above us. All this made deep feeling within us, and the old wise men thought much about it. And this is how we got our religion. I will continue next time, but that's a conversation starter. Notice they called it the great mystery, which is, we call it the unknown or the invisible or the whatever, the isness, that it's something that, you know, beyond everything. And I think, you know, living close to nature and seeing how nature works and obtaining your food straight from nature, your shelter, clothing, you have a better chance in a way of seeing this unknown, this mystery, what they call the great mystery. Although now in our day and times, it could prompt people to the way things are going, that could also prompt people. So you never know, but I thought I'd share this because it's, I find it very pure and sincere, the way he writes and the way he shares his upbringing as a real Indian in the, to be like 1880s or so, 1870s in America, straight from the Indian's mouth. So you guys have any comments, or if you have, if not, anything to share today?
Well, I just wanted to say, it sounds like a very natural way of living. Near my house, I got this creek where I go down to, and I go, and there's all these, there's grapes that grow down there. There's blackberries that grow down there. And so actually they're coming into season right now. There are these little things. And then when they're ripe, you go down there and you just pick them and you just eat them.
Where are you at? Is it, you're near a river in Modesto?
Yeah, there's a creek near my house.
A creek, okay.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the creek itself flows from Yosemite. It comes all the way from Yosemite, but it'll take you to all the different towns. I remember, because when you're in Oakdale, like, which is next door, you're in Empire, it's there, you know, it's in a part of town. And if you follow the river, it will take you to all these different parts of town.
How close are you to Yosemite?
Oh, like an hour and a half.
Okay. Have you visited that area much, explored it at all?
Yes, I usually just the trails, because when I go, it's like, oh, you get lost or something, whatever. But yeah, I do. I wander around a little bit. We go in the trail. You go all the way to the top, and you see the kind of like the waterfall that comes down. It's really serene, except the only thing that I could say really about it is, I mean, it's perfectly natural, like, besides the people, all the people, the tourism, but the squirrels are pretty fat. People like to feed the squirrels, so they get kind of hefty.
I remember we hiked through there. Our hike from the Pacific Crest Trail goes through there. And after Tuolumne Meadows, I got lost. I took a 20-mile detour. I went the wrong way, and I saw Hetch Hetchy Reservoir. You ever been down there? That's where we get our water in the Bay Area, some of our water in the San Francisco Bay Area. So it's a huge reservoir. It was kind of neat to see that. But I had to hitchhike back through I came to a small town. I got a ride back to Tuolumne Meadows, and I began my hike again. So.
And what was that hike you said you did?
The Pacific Crest Trail. It's the hike from Mexico to Canada through California, Oregon, and Washington. There's a trail, actual trail. It's 2,650 miles. And my son and I did this in 2014. And
you walked from there, from Mexico to Canada?
Yeah. Took us 5 months. And wow. It was immersion into the wilderness, and some parts that, you know, you're out there hundreds of miles from anything, especially in the Sierras. So it was a great experience. And right after that, I met Duane. I came back in 2014 in September, and I met Duane in November. And then I've been with Duane since 2000, end of 2014.
Okay. Wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty neat, the way it lined up like that.
Yeah, the experience like really helped to get rid of a lot of baggage that I had. Just being outdoors a lot for that long a time. It kind of and the you know, it's hard hiking with 30 pounds on your back uphill through rivers, raging rivers, and the snowfields and hot deserts. You go through the Mojave, through cold wind. So it's a challenge, but also there's a great fulfillment. And like I say, I shedded a lot of stuff I had about civilization and living there. So now I live outdoors, basically. I can't stand living in a building. I mean, sleeping in a building. So Kevin, did you have any thoughts about comments about that? What I read, or do you have anything today to share?
Well, in regards to what you were saying about becoming more aware and always stepping into the unknown, I just wrote a few little comments here that, well, wherever we are in life, we always know what we know at that point. And in order to become more aware, we obviously must step into the unknown of what we don't know. And the only way to do that is to take the risk and do something we've never done before, which then generates experiences which then allow us to see and be more, and then we become more aware of more consequently. And if this process is taken to its conclusion, then eventually we'll work through all of creation, see it in its entirety, become fully conscious of the personal self, its created consciousness, and all the dimensional parts of it, the tap lines, agreements, and attachments. And then ultimately, the final stage would be, of course, to, once fully conscious and in recognition of our awareness, to then recognize the is that the real awareness is a part of, which can only be done when you finally put aside everything of the personal self, the thoughts, the emotions, and stop considering through it, let it fade away, stop overutilizing it unnecessarily, stop catering to it. And so that would be then the constantly stepping into the unknown to its ultimate conclusion, which would be standing then real as the real beings of light we are in the real universes, which we all are now. We have to simply just recognize that position for it to become so. And what you just spoke about, I mean, the Indians there with their system, how it is very much exemplifies real survival. That's effectively what life is all about, is survival throughout all the life levels and into the real universes of the is, which of course is real survival. That is simply life being self-sufficient and surviving in all life levels and into the real universes.
Yeah, and there's a process too. Once you get over the big hump of recognizing what this is about, there's a process that you develop for your own self, so you can kind of effortless effort kind of idea where you can take things on as they come to you and not be such an effect of things, but be creative and innovative to face them, because you will be facing things. It's not a la-la land here, but the survival that you gain from it, the abilities that you gain from it through awareness is awesome. You just, it's indescribable how you can just be aware, and it encompasses so much. And you're just unlimited in your awareness, and how that is just fantastic.
And what's happening down at the creek near my house, which is, it just got flooded not too long ago, but on the side, as the river washes kind of away, all the plants that got they looked all mangled and flooded, is coming a lot of new growth at the same time. So it's pretty neat to see the self-sufficiency in the whole environment, how it sustains itself.
What is it, raining, or how does it get flooded? Is it drought?
Well, just a couple months ago, it was heavy raining, and then you go down there and the water level rises above the blackberry bushes as they sit right there by the river. And yeah, it was like that. And then eventually, as it got hotter, warmer, it decreased, and now it's like a little stream it runs, but it left behind a lot of debris and plants, but they sprouted.
Yeah, yeah. That's a cool area over there. And Kevin, do you have anything of a particular?
I'm just spinning off from what you said with your original sharing, really, just to as you were saying just now, the more aware you become, the better you can automatically know just how to operate throughout life on all the life levels and into the real universes. It's more automatic, and the only concerns or worries or fears you do have must come from the personal self, and the only part of you is that would not know what to do must be that which you have created, which is the personal self, which is almost in a perpetual state of confusion, never knows what's going on, is always questioning this, considering that, overcomplicating something else, adding too much literal ideas to that something else, and adding its convictions, attitudes, and so on and so forth. And all of that is simply sort of an overlapping illusion that obscures your ability from accessing the real awareness that you are, and therefore knowing how to operate just automatically according to the situation. And and in what you were saying as well about what you were reading out as well, it very much seems how the Indians did allow their children the space to grow, to experiment, to learn from their mistakes, rather than little like how the guides do. You know, they will give us space to make our errors, to make our blunders. You know, they're always there for us to assist us and with their demonstrations and provide us the viewpoints on the real side. But they do give us the chance and the space to become more responsible for the effects that we are always creating. Because if we always make poor decisions and create poor causes that then result in poor effects, then somebody else comes in and cleans up the mess after us. We will never take responsibility for our own actions. And so that seemed to be very much exemplified in how those Indians carried on with their children. And it's much better. There's much more a being to being situation between the parents and the children, rather than the parents assuming an authority figure over the child, because then that just adds to the overall conditioning and programming of children to obey authority figures, and that becomes ingrained in their consciousness as well, and adds to their overall control as they then go into schooling systems. Obviously not in that situation, but in the West they then go into school systems, and that control and authority to slave dynamic is perpetuated, and then into the work systems. And there's always generally considered that children know absolutely nothing by a vast majority of parents from the West, whereas all that is the case is it's simply a child hasn't amassed very much by way of experiential references that they can refer to. That's all the difference is. In fact, children are generally far more aware than the parents, because obviously they haven't yet been indoctrinated and literalized and one-dimensionalized through the Western schooling systems that the parents have. They haven't yet been absorbed into a one-dimensional personal self-literal consideration. And so, and as we know, the children can have far more expansive real-side experiences that parents really ought to pay attention and listen to, but most seldomly do, apart from those who realise that children, a little like animals, have that direct connection with their real awareness until such a time as they do get indoctrinated and locked into their personal selves through the schooling indoctrination system. So just add that.
Great. Yeah, very true. Very true. Yeah, our university will help support these kids in their real side experiences, and the mothers, the parents. They can come work and participate, watch their children grow, and not leave them for 8 hours or 6 hours in school, but you'll participate in the process of becoming more aware. We're not an agenda. We don't have an indoctrination system. We're just real with what we're doing. And the kids are a big part of this because they're the future, and they will show us, like you say, they will show us a lot. And so let's just end here. That's good. Good little short episode here. So we'll see if we can get Wendy on next week again for her to share. So in the end here, we usually sing the NUUU song, which is a way to connect to this reality that just is. It's just life. It's just nothing you can say about it, but it is a way. There's a lot of techniques you can use. This is one of the best things you can use to harmonize yourself with this reality and see what, and just listen and see what life shows you. And this is how it goes. New you. And Jeremy.
New you.
And Kevin.
You.
Thanks again. We'll see you next week.